We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And we're back on Liberty Nation Radio, continuing to be joined by Liberty Nation's executive editor, Lisa K. Donner. Lisa, I thank you for sticking it out with me in this year-end show. I do appreciate you being here. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't discuss the international situation of the last year. Now, there's three things that really spring to mind for me, and that is the Ukraine war has entered, or is about to enter, is around the 3-year period, and still ongoing. There's the ongoing conflict in Israel that's been going on for over a year now. And of course, there's Syria that has so recently decided to become a whole new can of worms. And nothing seems to be peaceful around the world. And I wonder if, as we're approaching Christmas, like, what can we really hope for? What's a thing worth praying for with these? Because I don't think there's an easy solution to any of them.
Let me tell you, from an American's perspective, this all makes Americans very anxious. And the reason is because we are the ones that bail everybody out. Mm. And we're tired of it. And, putting not just the money, but the manpower. Donald Trump is right. People are tired of Americans dying in useless foreign wars. And, one of the things that he's done since he's been elected is starting to meet with world leaders. And I think he makes people like Putin nervous. Mm. I think Putin considers him a wild card, maybe even a little bit crazy. And maybe Donald Trump fosters that, just to keep Putin on edge.
Well, there's the idea of strategic ambiguity, which under the Biden administration with Anthony Blinken and Lloyd Austin and these, we know exactly what they're thinking. I know what they're thinking. When something happens, I think, okay, they're going to do this, this, and this. And invariably, that's what they're doing because they're using the same playbook that the same people in their positions used throughout the entire Obama administration. There's nothing new happening here. And they don't realize that this whole cabal, they don't realize that other countries are watching this who know far more than I do. And they're saying, well, this is what these people will do if we do this. And so essentially, these bad actors around the world can do whatever they want because they know exactly what the US response is going to be. There's zero strategic ambiguity. Whereas with Donald Trump, as you say, they see him as maybe a little bit of a wild card. And there is absolutely strategic ambiguity because they don't know what he's going to do. And I suspect part of that is because Donald Trump's not entirely sure what he's going to do either.
On the other hand,
to do it.
Yeah, on the other hand, I think you've got something like the relationship between Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu. I mean, he's very, these are two leaders who have worked together. I think they have similar desires for an end product.
Yes.
And I think, Trump is willing to play ball with the Israelis.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are hoping that once Donald Trump gets into office, things will essentially be on a factory reset. Now, I've been following the preliminary peace talk news that's come out, and obviously I only get the news that's actually released. I don't have any inside stretch on this, but I do understand how to analyze the news. And what it seems to me is that Volodymyr Zelensky, he's getting ready to accept that there has to be an end date to hostilities and that Vladimir Putin will keep the territory that he currently holds. And there'll be negotiations to try and get some back, but there'll be diplomatic ones rather than doing a fighting force. But at the moment, you still have the US pushing Ukraine to lower the draft to age 18, which means that, and the reason they'd have to do that is because they've lost all of their other people. This is a country that doesn't have people left. And
Well, let me just say Russia's lost a few too.
Russia's got the people to lose. I mean, historically, they don't mind throwing 500,000 bodies at a conquest. They don't mind them. Whereas Ukraine doesn't have it, especially younger people, because of course they were under a lot of regime pressure 30 years ago, 25 years ago. And so they didn't have a big boom in population. So they already had a low population, and they're losing them. They're either injured, they're damaged psychologically, or they're running away. And so now they're looking to sacrifice the future to win today. So Zelensky, he wants to finish. I'm absolutely positive. He wants the war to finish, but he just needs the go-ahead from all of his strategic partners. Because if they just pull everything, well, then Vladimir Putin can just waltz wherever he wants to go. But the cost there is that until they say this is the deadline for when we stop hostilities, Vladimir Putin is going to, because he knows this is coming down the pipeline as well, he's going to be pushing his troops to take as much territory as they can until that end date. And when that end date strikes, they're right, this is the territory we've got. We're not pushing any further. That's the deal. But until that happens, until that end date,
keep pushing, yeah.
He'll keep pushing, and he'll be more aggressive, and more people on both sides will lose their lives. Homes will be destroyed. Innocents caught in crossfire until they come to that. Now, Donald Trump, I think it's pretty clear that that's the angle that he wants to take. Joe Biden still seems to be pushing this in his waning days as the lamest of lame duck presidents, seems to be pushing, well, you got to keep fighting this war. And all that's going to mean is that Ukraine loses more territory and more lives. And it seems a very sad state of affairs, Lisa.
Yeah, and it is worrisome. I mean, I think Americans, the foreign conflicts aren't on the front burner, but, they're still there. And in the last week, we've been facing what's going on in Syria and the Assad regime going down. And, historically in the Middle East, when a regime goes down, something that replaces it is worse. It's
a gradually worsening whack-a-mole contest out there.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
So the guy who is taking over, I forget his name just now, up until 5 minutes ago, or 2016, if you believe the press, was a terrorist. His group is still on many terrorist watch lists, and we expect that this is going to be a new peaceful, inclusive regime in Syria. I think they're going to play it quiet and play all the right notes of the piece until the money starts flowing in from the U.S. taxpayer, obviously, because it's always the U.S. taxpayer on the hook. And then they'll go back to whatever it is they want to do. They'll continue with trying to essentially rebuild up a caliphate, because they're caliphate oriented. That's what this group is. And I just hope that under Joe Biden, he doesn't commit too much to what's happening in Syria, because as soon as I'll just go out on a limb here, as soon as the inevitable executions start, because
that's the way it's done over there. Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as those start, nobody wants Joe Biden to be tied to, but you supported these people. And I think it's a foolhardy move to try and claim some credit for the deposing of al-Assad when you don't know what you're going to get in return.
But the problem with this is that over the last 4 years, we started with Ukraine, then we moved to the famous October Hamas. Now we're into Assad. It's like counting down the days, and Donald Trump is issuing edicts already. He's not even president, and saying, we want our hostages back or else.
That's I found that statement very, very interesting, because he said there'll be hell to pay. He didn't say who the hell was going to be paid by. And I suspect, and this wasn't my own original thought. This was prompted by...
Let the Israelis do it.
Well, the Dave Patterson, our national security correspondent, who really just understands so much about all this stuff, he put that into my head that maybe it's Iran that Donald Trump is talking about. When he says there'll be hell to pay, I think he's talking about Iran. And Joe Biden's just unblocked another bundle of cash from what I'm reading today. Another big bundle of cash has been unblocked for the Iranians, and I think that's who Donald Trump is talking about when he says there'll be hell to pay.
Well, there's no doubt that world peace is on many people's list for Christmas this year. What about your list? And there's nothing perhaps better at Christmas than having a toddler around. And you have one. So tell us about the Christmas plans at Mark Angelides' home.
We shall be having a little Christmas tree. We bought a small Christmas tree when he was born, and we're going to hopefully have it continue to grow as he grows, if we can keep it alive. The tree I'm talking about, of course. And we should be being thankful that, and this household will be focusing on being thankful for the things we have. Lisa K. Donna, I'm thankful for you too. Thanks for being here.
Merry Christmas, Mark.
And that's all we have time for on today's edition of Liberty Nation Radio, heard coast to coast on the Radio America Network. I've been your host, Mark Angelides. I'd like to thank our very special guest, Lisa K. Donner, and of course, extend my thanks, my New Year's wishes, and my Merry Christmases to you, the listeners at home, for joining us. And please remember, Liberty Nation does not endorse candidates, campaigns, or legislation, and this presentation is no endorsement.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.